All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome to today's video. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Robbie and David from TwoTouch Soccer. These are two clients of mine that we've been working together in the SBA for some time now. Robbie and David own a private soccer training business and have recently found some great success within their business. And today, we're going to be interviewing them on their process and how they've become successful. So let's get right into it, guys. Robbie, David, introduce yourself and kind of give us a brief explanation of who you are and what do you do.
Yeah, so I'm David. This is Robbie. We're both 25. Birthday's quite close together. We went to university together and we studied sports science. It was a course in Glasgow called Physiology and Sports Science. Both did a master's degree, but as part of that master's, we spent a bit of time at Premier League football clubs. So I spent a year down at Fulham. Robbie spent a year down at Wolves at the academy. And then once we'd sort of spent our time doing uni and we'd finished all that up, I think it was Robbie that messaged me asking if we wanted to start something private just because someone that he worked with did some private football coaching or soccer coaching and was doing quite well with it. So Robbie just fired the idea to me and we thought we'd run with it. That was a year and a half ago. So August 2022 when we started. But things never really got serious until maybe 6 months ago when we decided to really try and make it into a business and turn it into a full-time thing. And then I don't know how much I want to go into the details. Maybe you've got questions coming up, but we exploded all of a sudden. We got to the point where some things were an issue. We brought you in maybe a month ago, and obviously it's been good, but I'm sure we'll go into that in a minute.
Awesome, awesome. And how old are you guys?
Both 25.
Both 25. Okay, so you guys are still pretty relatively young. So, Robbie, like how and why did you guys get into the private training space?
Um, so I think from our perspective, we'd always dreamed of working in football and being around that sort of high pressure, elite training environment. But when we got into it and we started working in that, after about, I don't know how long it took David, but after about 3, 4 months, I realised that this isn't really what I want to do. And I feel like I can apply my skill set in different ways. It's going to allow me to get more from it financially, and it's going to help kids or footballers get more from their training as well, because what we do, our USP, isn't really delivered in Scotland at the moment. So that was a big thing for me, trying to just bring this new method of training back home.
Awesome, awesome. Yep. And adding value to your program has definitely been a big catalyst in you guys' success, which is awesome. So, you know, let's kind of get right into that a little more deeper. So before we started working together, I want to hear from David and then I'll hear from Robbie here. Tell us about how your business is performing, what you guys are doing, those kind of things.
Yeah, so basically we were almost flatline last August in terms of everything. We didn't really have, barely had any sessions. We were going session to session with payments. We weren't really focusing on the quality of the service. We just had a few regulars who would come week to week, and it wasn't a business, it was a side hustle more than anything. But then it sort of hit September, and we were like, right, let's in September 2023, so last year, we're like, right, let's give this a proper go. And I'd say within 3 or 4 months, not to give specific figures, but probably monthly we were hitting 5 figures revenue. Now the only problem there was, and it grew very fast. So I mean, by February time it exploded quite a bit. But the problem was myself and Robbie. Obviously, it's a business, but we were taking every single session, and they were all one-to-ones. So our time became, I think we were maybe spending over 30 hours a week on the pitch, which managing up to 130 clients, I think we reached, was impossible spending that much time in the pitch. So it was performing very well in terms of revenue, but the time we were putting in and the profit that was there because the margins weren't ideal because it was all one-to-ones, that was where the issues lay until we sort of brought you in. But I'll let Robbie take over there.
Mm-hmm. So I think just building on what David said there, we were running at a 52% margin as a business, but that margin was basically at that point because me and David were doing the majority of the sessions. With our assistant coaches, all the one-to-ones they were taking were running at a 35 to 40% margin. And I always remember having a conversation with David, just saying we're never going to be able to get out of this business and stop coaching, because as soon as we do, the margin's just going to tank. So we always spoke about trying to transition to group training, but because things were comfortable from a revenue perspective, we never really pushed ourselves to do it. We were just quite happy going along the way we were currently doing things, but suffering from a time perspective and a business growth perspective as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's a good problem to have, because we were completely maxed out in terms of, we had availability for pitches and coaches, but we were like maxed. But then that was like a glass ceiling, a limit that we had.
Mm-hmm. So you guys were working for the business rather than the business working for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's definitely one of the biggest things that we've been focusing on together, is buying that time back, starting to automate processes, getting people to, do the sessions for you guys so you can ultimately scale to that next level. So, Robbie, tell us some of the biggest problems and bottlenecks that you guys had before we started working together.
So like David said, I'd say the biggest bottleneck for us was just pitch availability. So I had about 30 time slots booked out at my training location week to week.
Mm.
But that was kind of the max amount of time slots I could get. That's the max they would give out. They're not expecting anyone to do that amount of hours. So that's how busy we were, but it was with one-to-ones, and we were trying to squeeze 3 1-to-1s on the same pitch every hour. And it was working for a period of time, but the quality of the service was suffering as a result. And because me and David were responsible for coordinating everything, we were on the pitch coaching, but still trying to deal with cancellations and rescheduled sessions and payments, and it was all just starting to get overwhelming. There's no way we could have scaled past 20k revenue a month, I don't think. Running things the way we were, basically.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you guys were totally maxed out on time slots. I remember you guys came to me and you're like, we're both working 25 hours a week right now. Like, how the heck do we get out of this hole? What about you, David? What do you think was the biggest bottleneck that you guys had before?
Yeah, really the burden we put upon ourselves, because I think, as you know, Noah, we sort of put a lot of effort into providing a high value service at that point. So we wrote plans for everyone, we wrote reports for everyone, we scheduled all sessions, we made sure all coaches were available for sessions, we dealt with cancellations, we coached almost all the sessions ourselves. So the main bottleneck was our sort of unwillingness to let go and try and make a change. I think, yeah, the main bottleneck was being comfortable, is what I would say, purely because we were happy with where we were, but then that was limited room for growth. I know that's a weird bottleneck, but I'd say that was probably it. It was the sort of unwillingness to make a sudden change was the bottleneck, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's easy to get comfortable when you're doing 6 figures in revenue for a business. You think it's performing until you really kind of sit down and you look at the numbers and see how much you're working for how much you're making, right? So talk to us, guys. And I guess, David, you talk to us here. So tell us about how we solved those problems together, kind of step by step.
Yeah, so it was a tricky one, because I think we were in a slightly rare situation, because I guess a lot of people are just getting started, or a lot of people have a few people, whereas we were maybe a rare case in that we were fully maxed out, which is where you might want to get to, but it was a tricky one. So basically, we had to identify, first of all, right, the main problem is too many one-to-ones. So I think we sat down with you, and first of all, we structured out what would be in our offers, but I think more importantly, we dealt with the pricing structure of things. Ultimately, I think you helped us understand that we needed to value our time more financially. So, for example, for one-to-ones, and ultimately they needed to become more inaccessible price-wise, and small groups needed to become more accessible. So I think what you helped us do is understand that from a pricing structure, we needed to funnel people into small groups in a way that would minimize dropouts. So we sort of sat down with yourself and devised a plan whereby we had to contact every single one-to-one person, which across our 2 locations is maybe 80 people, what to say, and then sort of how to break it to them, and setting it up in a way so that the group slots were all decided beforehand so people could just flow into them. It was a lot of logistical stuff, but I think, yeah, the main problem that you helped us solve at that point was that we simply had to value our time more, and that was it. As much as people might not like it, ultimately, if people drop out, it's still for the better. It's still better for the business long term, ultimately. I'll let Rob, I'll not take up too much time. Robbie, on you go if you want.
No, I'd completely agree with that. But I think, like I said at the start of the call, I think the most important thing was just having someone to sort of push you to make the change. Not to say that me and David would have never made the change moving forward, but just having that helping hand to sort of steady the ship and guide us moving forward and tell us some of the mistakes we were making that we were going to implement and how to sort of get around those mistakes and find a better way of doing things, but try and keep all our current clients as happy as possible at the same time as well. That was a really big thing that I got from working with you. Definitely.
Yeah, not changing everything, just restructuring what we were doing while we were still running the business, so we could ultimately transition into a better model. And then from here, obviously, we're going to talk about more about where we're going to go next. But let's talk about, so, without going, too far into the numbers, right? You guys came to me, you were doing the 5 figures a month, but you were only doing 4 figures in profit, which was only like a 52% margin. I think, is that sound right, Robbie? It was like 52%.
Bang on.
Okay. So that's right when we started working together. So, now where are you guys at, Robbie? And how long has it been already?
Yeah, so we implemented the new system on the 1st of May, so about 5-6 days ago. We started to tie our clients into minimum 3-month commitments, take upfront payments from anyone who wanted to pay upfront for a discounted price. And in terms of revenue, from a revenue perspective, we're sitting at about 13 grand this month, including upfront payments. And then from a profit perspective, we're sitting at about 11-ish, 11.2-ish thousand. So in terms of sessions in my location and sessions in David's location, my sessions are running at about an 82% margin just now. Don't get me wrong, I'm still coaching, but I'm only coaching 10 hours a week now instead of 30. And David's sessions are running at about a 79% margin. So as a business, we're about 80.5, I think.
Yeah.
Margin.
I'd maybe contrast that against what it was before. So in terms of numbers, what were we looking at, Robbie? Before this month?
Before this month, our best ever month was February, and it was 15.5 grand revenue. So we've took a drop in revenue, but our profit that month was 8.2 grand. So we've added 3 grand to profit, lost 2 grand in revenue. And in terms of session margins, like I said, they run about 80% margin now, whereas our one-to-ones used to run between 35 and 40% for our assistant coaches. But probably the best thing is our assistant coaches can take group sessions now and they'll still run at about a 70-75% margin for that group. So you're always above that 70% margin moving forward, which is obviously fantastic as a business.
Yeah. I'd just like to add one thing in. So for where I want to go and where Robbie wants to go as well, an increase in £3,000 profits, like, it's extremely good. But what the best thing without a doubt has been working with you so far is a time free up, because I think I've gone from 32 to maybe 12 sessions a week. And I love coaching, but it's more, we need to also work in the business. So that's been like, it's great the profits increased and whatnot and the margin's better, but this time free up has been the biggest thing for me by far.
Awesome. Yep. I know we celebrated real hard on that. So you guys have basically gone from doing about, and if you don't, you guys already use numbers, so I'll use numbers too. So I remember you doing about 15.5 when you just came in, and you did about 8.2. So that 52% margin. And I mean, And just for reference, they started the new model on May 1st, so about 6 days ago. But we started working together. It was the very beginning of April, right? Like a little bit over a month ago.
Yeah.
And within that month, we were able to increase profit by 3,000, get over that $10,000 a month profit range, and then the most importantly, like you said, drop all those hours so we can buy time back. That was the biggest thing for you guys, and what we were going to work on is buying the time back so we can then allocate that work so we can then focus on other things to build those systems, to build the automations, to do all those things that we've been doing on a daily basis. Awesome. So
Yeah.
let's talk about goals, guys. So, and trust me, I already know we go crazy about it every day, but what is the business goal, 3 months from now? Give me like a revenue goal or just a business goal, and then give me a goal, 12 months from now.
Okay. I'd say by the end of the year. I'm just going to say end of the year. I think Robbie might agree. You can let me know. But we've got quarterly goals, but they've certainly shifted in the last 6 days based on what's happened. So we need to reassess those. But end of the year revenue, I want to be 30. Yeah, and that's potentially opening up another location because Robbie and I operate in separate locations, so we can obviously maximize our own and then maybe look elsewhere. What about you, Robbie? Is that a
Yeah, no, I'd completely agree with that. I want to hit 30 grand a month at a minimum 70% margin, so 21,000 profit a month as well. In terms of 12 months down the line, obviously it depends on how or the process with opening in new locations, but as soon as you've solved that problem once, you just repeat the process. So I honestly think we could get to 50,000 a month at 70% margin within 12 months. That might sound ridiculous, but I honestly believe we could, just with the changes we've made in the past month. I don't see why we can't just take that recipe and repeat it and apply it in different places.
Yeah, I think the most exciting part for me as well as the time and all that is, all we've done with so far is change what we've currently got without bringing a single new person in. We've not even started our acquisition systems that we're going to be working on this week. So we've literally done all this without bringing a single new person on, but maybe losing around 20 people, believe it or not, maybe slightly less. And we've still to set up those new systems of bringing new people in. So yeah.
Yep. You ultimately ended up making more money by losing people too. So we made room, which is unbelievable. It is awesome. Yeah. So yeah, right. Like our goal, yes, is to get to that 30K and then ultimately that 50K, right? And how you guys are going to do that is, and I know we talk about this on a daily basis because we meet every week, but how they're going to get there is, like David said, we haven't even started doing any client acquisition work and they're doing over $10,000 in profit, right? You guys are already doing, 13, 14 grand a month without even bringing any new clients in right now, right? So the next step for us is to get the acquisition systems up and running with a major focus on the paid ads, just running advertisements on Instagram, Facebook. We're even going to throw I'm going to sprinkle in some Google ads in there as well. Okay, start building those lead gen systems out and then start building out those other systems and just scaling our marketing, right? And throwing more and more money every single month into the ads, into the SMS and email marketing, and really just growing this thing. And like Robbie said, right, we're eventually gonna get to a point where we're gonna have too many damn kids, and we're gonna need to go get another location, and we're preparing for that, right? But that's the next steps, is building that client acquisition, scaling those systems, and then getting into new locations and just continually improving from there. Okay, awesome, guys. Just like 2 more questions here. So if you guys were to give any advice to coaches who are watching this and who are just starting up their training business, like what would you say to them?
First of all, obviously with the SBA course content, we've only been through the 2.0 version, so I can't actually speak on the 3.0, but I'd imagine it's better. First of all, so yeah,
I hope so.
the one thing I'd say, going through the 2.0 stuff, if we'd had that at the start, it would have saved a lot of pain, time, and money ultimately, and it would have expedited the process a lot quicker. So we would have got, rather than taking a year and a half to get to here, the content itself would have accelerated that, just purely because it's stopping you making the mistakes before you have to make them. But I'll let Robbie speak on the content as well first if you want.
Oh yeah, in terms of the SBA course, the content is great, and there's even though we were operating at quite a high level, there's things in there that we hadn't even considered, like the minimum commitments to payment of 3 months, 6 months, things like that. So that's really helped just transform our business from a stability point of view, knowing what the revenue is going to be for the next 3 months, instead of looking at it fluctuating month to month, because that can dishearten you a little bit. One thing I will say though is with the SBA course, it's great, but I think me and David have got the most value from yourself, Noah, and actually working with you. Me and David do a lot of learning on our own to try and grow things, and every time we've invested in our learning, we've seen an expansion in the business. Now obviously working with you is the biggest investment we've ever made, but I think it just goes to show you, with that massive investment that we've made, within a month, we've already near enough paid that off. And that's in 1 month. We're still going to be working with you for the next 2 months. So realistically, from this investment, we're going to make profit at the end of it, which is crazy to think. Crazy to think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it.
I think to add to that, it's a great community, but I think we had very specific problems that we needed someone to help guide us through. As I say, we had a unique situation, and I think the content wouldn't have answered what we needed itself because of the stage we were at. So I think, yeah, bringing you into allowed us to really make the changes that I think were specific to us. Because at the end of the day, all businesses who are going to come into this are going to be at different situations. You can't really cater for everyone. So yeah, I think 100% the guide, what I would say is Robbie and I were sort of deliberating, like, should we sort of make these changes at the start of June to give us time to implement it? But then I think actually having you to not just guide the process, but sort of push us just to do it helped a lot, as well as helping us with what to do. Just the general push to do it quicker was quite big as well.
Awesome. So would you guys say it's worth the investment?
So far, yeah. Certainly after a month. Yeah. And
awesome.
to be quite honest, it's already been more than worth it, and we've still got a couple months. So yeah, couldn't recommend it highly enough.
Awesome. Thank you guys. And I appreciate that. All right, last question for me, guys. So, there's a ton of coaches out there who are thinking about starting up their private training business on their own, or just, getting into the sports training industry in general. And, you guys have found such great success. Somebody who's sitting at home thinking, should I start my soccer training or my basketball training business? What advice would you give them?
Ooh, do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
Yeah, I can take this one first. So if I was to give anyone advice, I would just say don't rule yourself out of doing anything. So, like I said at the start of the call, our dream is always to work in football. And then when we worked at a really high level in football, it's quite a big risk wanting to drop out from that lifestyle, because you've done 4 years at university for it. You've then done a master's degree for a year. You've got all your experience working in football. And I remember I got offered a job when I worked there. And when I wanted to leave that, my parents and my friends were like, what are you doing? Like, you're living the dream just now. But I knew, or I didn't feel fulfilled, put it that way. I knew deep down that I wanted to do something else and bring value to people who needed it. And I thought my skills were valuable. And that's why we started this up. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't an overnight success. Some people will watch this and they'll think, oh, 15 grand a month, how lucky are they guys? But there was plenty of months, 6, 7, 8 months in, where me and David were paying ourselves £50 a month because we had no clients. We weren't making any money, but we just believed in the systems that we had. And we developed those systems, built those systems up, and then obviously just bringing you on board, it just helped us to streamline that process and just grow on it. And yeah, it's been fantastic.
Awesome. David, any advice for the people sitting at home?
I'll take a slightly different path with this. The thing that served us so with one-to-ones, right? First of all, myself and Robbie have literally barely ever lost someone. So our retention rate is super high. And secondly, when we started to transition these people into groups, the people that we individually coached one-to-one, there were very, 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 very few that weren't happy with just going into groups. So the reason I sort of say this is to say that the kids' experience of the session and their time with you is the most important thing without a doubt, because we know that every time kids go back into the car, not only are they buzzing with the session, but they're asking when they get to go back. I think that's testament to the quality of the training itself, but more so the way that we interact with them. They sort of see us as obviously a trainer and a coach, but someone that they look forward to seeing every week. And I think the relationship you build with every player at the start is so important to focus on, because there's a trust that's built there with the player, there's a trust that's built there with the parent, and long term what it's allowed us to do is basically have the parents just trust us to do what changes we want to make the changes that we want to make, and they just go with it. Because we've built up, it's taken a lot of time, but the relationship and the trust that we've built up based on who we are and the service that we deliver is the most important thing, and it's kept us afloat, essentially.
Awesome.
I just want to add one final thing to that, Noah. There might be a lot of coaches watching this thinking, I don't have enough coaching experience, or I don't have these coaching badges. Me and David, I'm not just saying this, me and David are probably the worst coaches in our business. but it's the truth. I joke about this all the time. We are the worst coaches in our business, but from a personality perspective and an energy perspective, that's why people want to work with me. That's why people want to work with David, because the kids enjoy it. And it's almost like training with a friend or training with one of their best mates. That's the sort of culture we try and create in our training sessions. And that's why our retention rates stayed so high. So don't think you need all the coaching badges under the sun, or you need this experience or that experience. Just play to your strengths. Basically, if you're a great technical coach, focus in that aspect. We focus on the physical side of the game. That's where we specialize. That's what we sort of play off of. And then from a personality perspective as well, just try and bring energy to the sessions and make it as enjoyable as possible.
Awesome. Awesome, guys. I appreciate that so much. All right, guys. Well, tell them, before we conclude, tell them where they can find you. Give us the Instagram, the YouTube, whatever.
I think the Instagram handle's TwoTouch_coaching. It could be better, but we're planning to grow it in the coming months. Now we're freed up our time, we can actually grow it.
Awesome. Can the coaches reach out to you there?
Yes, of course. Yeah. We read our DMs and everything, so it's not as if we're inundated with messages at the moment. So,
and what's the username again? Go ahead.
So TWOTOUCH, which is TwoTouch_coaching.
Awesome. Robbie, you got anything?
No, best place to hit us up is Instagram, definitely. We read our DMs all the time, so I don't know about David, but
I'm not so good at it. But yeah, once again, just want to say, I couldn't recommend yourself highly enough. It's been a game changer in the last month, and we look forward to the next couple months that we've got.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, that's everything for today's interview with David and Robbie from TwoTouch Soccer. If you guys are still sticking around to watch the video, thank you so much. If you guys have any questions, concerns, you guys want to contact me, just hit me up on my Instagram at coach.noahv. I'm also going to leave a link in the description below to book a call with me. So feel free to book in a call as well. And you guys have an awesome day. Go make some money. Peace.